Are you a racist?
You can't call me or any black person any place in the world a racist. We don't have the power to do to white people what white people have done to us. And even if we did, we don't have that low-down, dirty nature.
So do you believe there are any good white people?
If there are, I haven't met them. Where are they?
And racism is a group system of exploitation, discrimination, oppression, bias, where one group seeks to deny all members of another group their fair share of resources, opportunities, and privileges. You know why you can't be a racist? You don't own a damn thing white people need in order to live. White people need you for nothing, but you need them. Whose schools our kids go to? Theirs. Our money in whose banks? Theirs. Who's building the houses we need to rent and buy? Them. Who's shipping our stuff around the world that we need to order to live? Them. You follow me? They don't need us for shit. We need them for everything. We are as dependent on white people today as we were when slavery ended 150 years.
Not really be racist, because racism is prejudice plus power. Nothing I say up here nor anywhere in the world will impact, stop fronting, will impact on any white folks in this audience, on your job, in politics, in economics, in housing, in the society. We don't have the power to do that, so we cannot be racist. You know what I'm saying?
I don't want you to let people keep telling you that black people can be racist. You cannot be racist. The word does not exist for you. Racism means group-based. Racism means a power relationship. A power relationship between two groups, where one group owns and controls so much that they can use their wealth and their powers to deprive and hurt and injure another group. That's what racism is. And no place can you find a black person on earth that can be a racist. Only thing you can get at best is a black reactionary. That means a black person who's reacting to white racism. If black folk had been racist, they'd have been racist 400 years ago. They would have stopped people from depriving and hurting and castrating and lynching and exploiting them 400 years ago. That's why if you go back through history, you cannot find one single solitary instance any place in history on this earth where black folk have had enough power and wealth to come together to do injury to another group and take something from them. In the United States, you've never seen any blacks come together as an organization, as a group, to hurt any other group. Blacks have never done anything to Jews or to whites or anybody else, Asians or Hispanics, as a group. We can't practice racism. We don't even have a community to practice racism. But on the other hand, I can go through history books and I can show you mountains, thousands, maybe millions of instances where everybody else have done things mean to us, to deprive and hurt us, by social customs, by extra legal and legal means, by laws to do in black folk. You can't be a racist unless you got power and wealth for your group to be able to hurt other people and take and do them in, and we don't have it. So all we are reactions to white racism.
But we must look at the fact that we don't teach hatred. Everywhere we go as black people, we face hatred. Look at it. Look at it. Angel food cake, white people say, is white. Devil's food cake, you say, is black. You wear white to weddings and black to funerals. Blackball, blackmail. You give us a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, pale-skinned, buttermilk complexion Jesus in contradiction to the black Jesus in the Bible. Our own babies, according to behavioral scientists, our baby girls, when confronted with choosing between a black doll and a white doll, there has been so much damage done, they choose the white doll and say the black doll is ugly. So racism is everywhere and it's institutionalized.
The whole problem goes back to 1619. In 1619, there was no such thing. Y'all be clear on this. There was no such thing basically as racism. Racism didn't exist before black slavery started. You had conflicts between ethnic groups. You had conflicts between religious groups. And you had cultural disagreements. But you never had racism until black enslavement started. Racism is a word that means race. It means group.
You made the statement that black people can't be racist. First of all, do you believe that?
Yeah.
Black people cannot be racist. Racism is an institution. It's not a feeling. It's not a word. So black people cannot be racist because there is nothing that black people can do that will put white people on a lower level than them. And that's what racism is. Racism is a system that's going to disenfranchise you. It's going to take away opportunities from you. Black people cannot do that to white people in this country. All over I'm not even going to say in this country, all over the world, that's not going to be a thing.
If a black person went outside and saw a white person there and called him a cracker, would that make him racist?
No. Cracker is not dehumanizing. There is not one word that a black person can call a white person that's dehumanizing.
He thinks that a black person can be racist. A black person cannot be a racist. Racism is a power relationship between groups of people. That's all it is. It means that one group of people have control of so much wealth and power and resource that it can deprive, hurt, and injure and exploit another group to benefit itself. Never in the history of this earth have black folk ever controlled that much resources and where they can have gone out of their way to exploit, injure, and do something to whites. So therefore, racism only started in the 16th century when you began to commercialize slavery against blacks. That's when racism started. There was no such thing as racism before that.
Can black folks be racist?
No. And the reason black people cannot be racist, the reason black people cannot be racist is because racism is about privileges
and power.
Yep. You ain't got no privileges and you control nothing.
No.
In order to be racist, you have to control the institution.
That's right.
And the resources. You have to be able to grant concessions and take them back.
That's right.
Do you control the economy?
Nope.
Do you control any major industry? Do you control the criminal justice system? Black people can be prejudiced, but you cannot be racist.
And
in order to be racist, you got to have power and privilege.
Yep.
One of the most annoying discussions that I see take place is the argument about whether black people can be racist or not. And before I get into the Google definition that most people are using in order to justify why this is even debatable, I gotta ask, to the people that raised this question in the first place and say yes, that they can be racist, who are you protecting? What people have been so harmed by black racism that you need to stand in their defense? Is there a people that have been colonized by Africans and brought to a new world that they didn't want to go to and forced to build an African empire? Is there some people in Asia or Europe with an African last name and speak an African tongue that have been robbed of their history? After World War II, a doctor named Gregory Stanton wrote a thesis on the 10 stages of genocide. Most of these stages America has already gone through, but that 10th stage is what speaks to people asking whether or not black people can be racist. It's the stage where the perpetrator decides to deny the history that they've done to people and blame the victims instead. Google defines racism as prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership to a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority. A lot of y'all skip over the prejudice and discrimination and go to antagonism by an individual and then skip to against a person. But what you fail to read is the part that says on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group. We have never been prejudiced, antagonized, or discriminated anyone just on the basis of their membership to a racial category we did not create. Some of us may be apprehensive or defensive based on our treatment by other racial groups, because we're not going to act like the past 400 years didn't happen. But some of y'all think retaliation against the system is racism towards an individual, and that's really just showing your guilt.
Factually, black people do not have the structural power in the United States to be racist.
So I may be a little late, but the video just came to my attention, and I went in the comments, and it seemed like a lot of people are really confused, irate a little bit about the fact that black people do not have the structural power in the United States to be racist. So for me, I thought this was just a very simple statement. I thought it was something that was commonly understood, that racism is systemic. It is more than black people not liking you. It is more than black people not wanting to be around you. Racism is a system that affects people's ability to find housing, to get jobs, to live in desirable neighborhoods. It affects how long they live. You've seen the rates of murders against Black people by police and other systems. It affects every single thing. Look up weathering, okay? So Black people, we don't have the power to inflict those systems on white people in the United States. That just is what it is. You go have to take that to the altar. Also, this is not a new statement. I noticed in the video that other people kind of understood what I was trying to say. Lizzo has a video on TikTok about how racism is a system. Exactly what I'm trying to say.
Black people know they're not American, but they will fight like hell to protect that identity because they don't want to be identified with who they really are, and that's being African. We hate our Africanity. That's exactly why when I created the Unapologetically African movement, you see how quickly it morphed into Unapologetically Black. I never said unapologetically Black. I said unapologetically African. But even within the Black consciousness community, we are still anti-African because deep down within our subconscious, we were all conditioned by the same superstructure that made us feel that Africa wasn't anything worth claiming. So the Blackness is a step away from whiteness, Envy,
right?
But it's still 10 steps away from your Africanity.
We're raised like that, you know. As a kid, I'm not going to say my parents, but you always know when you get out the hood, you're doing well. When you live with the white folks, you're doing well.
Exactly.
When you have a lawyer and your lawyer's white, you're doing well. When you have a white accountant, you're doing well. That's
so your standard of excellence is outside of your community.
Absolutely.
And we're the only people who have a standard of excellence, an ideal to achieve, that was created by our oppressor.
First thing first, let's define what racism is. According to most dictionaries, racism is prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. By this definition, anyone regardless of their race can hold and express racist view or engage in a racist behavior. But there is more to it. When discussing racism, it is crucial to understand the difference between individual racism and systemic racism. Individual racism refers to personal prejudice, beliefs, and discriminatory actions, while systemic racism involves institutional policies and practices that perpetuate racial inequality. Many scholars and activists argue that because Black people and other marginalized groups do not hold societal power in the same way as the dominant racial group, their actions may not have the same systemic impact. Let's look at an example. If a Black person expresses prejudice towards someone of another race, it is undeniably wrong and harmful. But because they do not benefit from a system that privileges their race over others, some argue that this behavior should be called prejudice or bigotry rather than racism.